Hello everyone, my name is Abigail Nimick and I'll be doing a presentation over the clarinet, obviously, since it is my primary instrument, and I will be connecting it to Gerald Finzi's 5 bagatelles and relating certain sections of the piece that are idiomatic of certain aspects of the clarinet. I chose this piece because I do think that it showcases certain aspects of the clarinet quite well, but also that I am playing this piece currently, so I know more about it than probably other famous pieces for clarinet. So before I start talking about Finzi's 5 bagatelles, I would like to mention a little tidbit of information that I found and that I thought was quite funny when I was researching this. As I've stated before, I think that the 5 bagatelles are a good showcase of the certain aspects of clarinet, but I think Finzi had a very different idea of this piece that he composed, because when I looked it up and what he thought of the 5 bagatelles, he said that the 5 bagatelles were only trifles and that they weren't really worth much, and that they just happen to be more popular than some of his decent stuff, as he puts it. So even though Finzi has kind of a negative view of his 5 bagatelles, I still do think that it showcases, at least in a very basic sense, the certain aspects of clarinet. So I thought I'd share that. I thought it was funny. So some major components or things to remember about the clarinet is that it is a very versatile instrument. When I say that, it is versatile in articulations, in dynamics, um, in its range. For instance, its range is typically from a low E to a high G, which is a very wide range, and I'll show you a picture in the next slide of its range. It's mainly used for solos and chamber orchestra, but has roots in jazz. It can be used for wind ensembles, so it's a very versatile instrument. It doesn't really fit into any one sort of category and can be used for many different things. So when I talk about range, I really mean this. I thought that this picture was a good indicator of clarinet range. I do have something to say about the range, though. It does showcase a low E for clarinet right here, but it showcases a high A for clarinet here, and I feel like most people tend not to go above the G, which would be a note below this high A, so keep that in mind, that the clarinet really ranges from a low E to a high G instead of that high A. It's mainly because more people are comfortable playing within that range, and anything above a G can be harder for those who are not professional clarinetists. I also tend to like this chart because it shows you these low tones. It shows you the tones where clarinets are more comfortable performing. It shows altissimo notes, and it also shows the range of throat tones, which are notes that are really hard for clarinetists to get in tune. This chart also shows written versus sounding pitches, so that can be helpful when arranging your own music as well. In the handout that should be linked along with this presentation video are the 5 bagatelles by Gerald Finzi, but it is a score version of it rather than just a live performance version of it. So I will have screenshots. I will flip over to the score to show you what I mean for certain aspects of the clarinet. It's just an easier visual aid for you. I want to note that the prelude starts at the very beginning. The second movement, Romance, starts 3:27. Third, Carol, starts 8 minutes 4 seconds. Fourth, Forlana, 10 minutes 1 second, and Fugetta, 12 minutes 38 seconds to the end, obviously. So because the clarinet has such a wide range, I wanted to showcase that first, of remember ranging from a low E to a high G, showing you that chart again. But I also wanted to show you specifically in the piece where I think it showcases it the best. That would be in the first movement prelude at 35 seconds. In stepwise motion, the clarinet moves from a low E to a high G, which is only 3 notes away from the top of the range. And if you get I think it shows it all throughout that last movement right there. But I will quickly flip to the score and kind of show you what I mean in a recording. So that recording was meant to show you that it went from that low E to that high D, and just to show you the range of the instrument. I hope that gave you a better understanding. I also have it pictured below in this slide. The next thing I'd like to talk about is articulations. The clarinet doesn't fit into any sort of box. It can do legato articulations, it can do staccato articulations, and even pictured below are tenuto articulations that go into staccato articulations. You can barely see it here, but you will hear it in the recording when I play it for you, and we can switch to that now. So that small section in Prelude was meant to show you that the clarinet can switch between certain articulations rather quickly, in fact, with only a few bars within each other. So it can show you that it can be extremely versatile within articulations as well. I think as a clarinetist, it would be a shame if I didn't talk about the warmer, lower tones part of the instrument, because a lot of people, when they score lyrical aspects, they tend to put clarinets more toward the lower range, and it just creates a warmer sound, and it's very nice, versus the sharp altissimo notes that you usually get when you're in the high range. This does not include the throat tones because those can be slightly out of tune at times, but it can. We're mainly talking about this lower range as you see in the chart. So the best example would be in Romance, specifically at 5 minutes and 3 seconds within Romance, which is the second movement of the 5 bagatelles. And I can show you a little bit what I mean. It is pictured below these lower notes, but I will show you what I mean. I think from the recording you can tell that when the clarinet is written into the lower range, it creates a certain sound that you don't really get with other instruments. So it's nice to use the clarinet for lower pitches to create a warmer, more mellow, more rounded sound. It can make your piece sound very dark at times, but also kind of peaceful. It just depends on how you want to use the lower notes. I think throughout this whole presentation, the main idea I've been harping on is showcasing versatility within the instrument, the clarinet. I think the main movement that showcases the versatility between the range of the clarinet, varied articulations, and differences between the warmer tones I talked about in the last slide, and even the altissimo notes that was heard in the prelude, which I showed you, I think can be heard most mainly within the Fuguetta, which starts at 12 minutes and 38 seconds, and it is the last movement of the 5 bagatelles. To show you a little bit more of the range, I think in the best example of it is at 12 minutes 40 seconds near the start of the last movement, and I will flip over to that now. So the clip I just showed you showed the range from the lowest notes, the warmer tones, to the highest altissimo notes within the range or the chart that I showed you previously. One aspect of the clarinet that I haven't touched on, but I can touch on very briefly, are the dynamic differences. This may be one of the most important parts, is that the clarinet can go from a really loud fortissimo to a really soft, almost niente, almost nothing sounding. And I think that the last movement showcases this quite well at 14 minutes and 42 seconds. So I will play you a clip of it going from fortissimo to a really soft piano. So as shown in the clip, the clarinet not only went from high altissimo notes to the lower range of the instrument, but it also showed you the dynamic range as well, which is unique to the clarinet, is that you can go from a really loud sound to an almost nothing sound at the end. And it is important to keep in mind when you're doing your own arranging. So that is all I have on the Five Bagatelles by Gerald Finzi. But if you're interested in looking up more aspects of the clarinet or just have an interest in looking up more clarinet music, some really famous popular pieces that you can look up to learn more about the clarinet or to relate the certain aspects I talked about in this presentation would be Fantasy Pieces, Opus 73 by Robert Schumann, Sonata by Leonard Bernstein, Divertimento by Heinrich Berman, and Concerto No. 3 in B-flat by Carl Stamitz. All of these are good examples of great clarinet repertoire. Before I end the presentation, I would like to leave you all with a discussion question that you can answer in the replies. Why should the range of an instrument be an important aspect to consider when selecting repertoire, and what aspects of Finzi's piece would not work for a clarinetist with an underdeveloped range? And that is all I have for you today. Thank you for listening to my presentation.